And 2 years later, you know what he said? I think I'm just going to name my vineyards Jeeper. So there it was, born Jeeper in 1949 because of a wonderful gift that the U.S. Army bequeathed to him.
Jeeper has an interesting story behind it, based on the end of World War II,
Yes,
based on an adventurous spirit.
yes,
First production run was back in 2010. Can
yes.
you give us just a very brief history lesson of Jeeper that brings us up to present day?
I sure can. So, as you know, many champagne houses have great stories, and that's the great thing about champagne. Every maison has their story, and the fact that you get to go back and look at it and recount it and recall and find out how it became is super fascinating to me. As I said to you, I've worked for other maisons that had great histories, had great teachers over the years. And I was so fortunate for that. And when I had the chance to join Jeeper, I went back to look at the story. And of course, it was a family, the Gourtraub family. And you'll have to kind of excuse my Southern French accent. I always say that my French is Southern French, and it's kind of a joke with my friends that know me because I am a Southerner, if you cannot tell. And when we met in person, I told you the same thing. So the Gourtraub family was a family that, of course, started in the 1800s making champagne. And of course, it had its heyday, and then it floundered, and then it had its heyday. And it changed hands for quite some time. And then there was a gentleman by the name of Armand Gourtraub who was working his family vineyards. And he, of course, had to be called to war and ended up in a house in a location undisclosed. Of course, everybody was fighting against the resistance at that time. And he happened to be holed up in a place with some American soldiers, and they were being bombed. And consequently, they were all trying to help save each other's lives. But from what history tells us, and the story is that Armand was a gentleman who took it upon himself to risk his own life to pull some American GIs away from the building that was going to be bombed and, of course, destroyed, possibly losing their lives. And in doing so, he impeded his leg and went back to, of course, look over his vineyards. And, you know, in Champagne, the hills they're steep. They're not high, but they're steep. And it impeded him being able to look over his vineyards and really carry on his day-to-day operations. And the U.S. Army got hold of the story, and some of the soldiers that he saved their lives wanted to pay tribute to him, and in all humbleness, to thank him for saving their lives. So the U.S. military gave him a Jeep, a Willys Jeep. And he rode around, of course, in the villages, and he became known as Mr. Jeeper Man. And 2 years later, you know what he said? I think I'm just going to name my vineyards Jeeper. So there it was, born Jeeper in 1949 because of a wonderful gift that the U.S. Army bequeathed to him. And all thankfulness and like I said, for saving someone's life. I mean, is there really a price tag you can put on that? Of course not. But it's something. We still have the Jeep today on property, and it's there, and it's just such a great story. A lot of people say, "Can't you change the name?" I'm like, no, I love the name, and I think it kind of sets us apart. And I think it's easy for people to say because, as we know, people are afraid to pronounce. I'm super afraid to pronounce French names. It's funny when I meet people, they hear that my name is Camille, and they start to speak French to me. And I'm like, whoa, I only know just a little bit, some of the good words and some of the bad words. So, but it's easy. And I think it kind of lends character on so many levels, especially the story and then what we're trying to do and what we're doing and what our plans for the future are as well.
And as everyone's hearing a story and getting to know your bottles, what's the big request? What can our audience who's watching and listening to you now, what can we do for you? How can we help Jeeper?
I think, well, helping Jeeper is, of course, buy some, of course, where we're distributed.
So where can we find you to buy you? And what social media is Jeepers on? How can we follow you?
So Jeeper, you can Champagne Jeeper. We're credited by Champagne Jeeper. So we're currently in the following markets: New York, Florida, Ohio. We just opened up North Carolina. We just opened up not South Carolina, my apologies, Georgia. We are opening up Colorado. I'm just waiting on some compliance issues. It's 50 states with 50 different laws, and that's how we have to adhere to everything. So it just doesn't happen overnight. Nevada, we are opening up in California. So there's a lot to be done. Our most vibrant market at the moment is Florida. We have an incredible distributor in South Florida. He's a small distributor and he happens to be French, and his passion is just amazing. He's excitable and he loves what he does. And I have some great friends down in Florida that have been great for us. I'm going to take the chance to mention one of them, Virginia Phillips, who happens to be a master sommelier that runs the Breakers Hotel, along with the other people that are on her team, Juan Gomez and one other young man. And they're pouring the Grand Assemblage by the glass at the Breakers.
Wow.
So we're super excited about that. Like I said, open your mind, open your heart. Champagne is very emotional. So I think there's the connection with that as well.